I'm telling you, these ladies organize anything and everything and everyone, and even even getting us to speak at the right place. And it's really wonderful to be with you guys today. It's a very special moment, and in a way, today is a celebration of the 12 years that Funda Nenja has been in existence. It's much more than just sharing great ideas. It's a celebration when in South Africa, an bottom-up community development project can show such incredible outputs in every way as a Funda Nenja. A round of applause for Funda Nenja. I was just thinking as Glyn Harborth introduced the meeting today, he touched on so many key ideas. He spoke about going from strength to strength and the challenges of funding it. And I just thought, it's people it's the unassuming people in our world who actually make South Africa a great place. It's not necessarily just the politicians or the high-profile people. It's ordinary folk who, working together with other ordinary folk, that really makes it happen. So from myself, Jim, Sanbonani Noonke, would you like to talk to me in English or isiZulu? There's your call today. Yeah, I'm hopeless in isiXhosa and Sesotho, so shall we just stick to English? So we had the privilege of doing an evaluation of Funda Nenja after 10 years of existence. And I should acknowledge the co-authors, Yvonne Spain, who was a former chairperson of Funda Nenja. Professor Robert Donoghue from Rhodes University also helped, as did Tembeka Dambuza, who actually grew up in the Edendale Valley, and she's passionate about caring for dogs. So it was lovely having their help with this evaluation. There is a book about it, and Lisa kindly printed it. I've got the A4 version. I only saw the A5 version today. But then I saw the program, and these two ladies put me on the program to introduce Funda Nenja. And I just thought, but I'm no good at that. They're the best at it. And then I showed my wife, and she said, you stuffed. You know good on Funda Nenja. She said, all the people in the room are going to know more about it than you do. So I said, yeah, but that's true. So she said, well, don't tell them about Funda Nenja. Tell them out of the mouth of somebody who was a Funda Nenja participant. That's a cool idea. So here's the evaluation book. And she paged through. And this is from Sandile Ndlovu. Okay? He's going to explain to you what Funda Nenja is all about. He says, Funda Nenja has totally changed the life of the dogs and people of Mpopomeni. Elderly people now tell all the children to go to Funda Nenja so that they can become good. Everyone takes their dogs to be vaccinated. Before, they didn't even know that you must vaccinate a dog. They now buy kennels and dog food for their dogs. Before, the dogs would have nowhere to sleep and just eat scraps. Nobody knew that they must have shelter and proper food. You now see the gogos, that's our grannies, ukoko, carrying lots of meat, and they say it is for the dogs. If someone is abusing a dog, everyone tells him or her that they will report them, and that's not cool. And they will get into big trouble. We don't abuse dogs. It is a very different life for most of the dogs of Mpopomeni now. Have I ticked the box in the program about Funda Nenja? Great. You must tell my wife I did okay. So here we go. Here's the story, and this is unpacking the program of evaluation that ended up as this book. So what did we do, and how did we go about finding out about Funda Nenja and researching the concept? Research means search. It means to look again. And when you look again at something, it means you can understand it better and maybe even do it better. So we formed a steering committee to guide us. Many of the people in this room were part of that steering committee. It was quite open-ended, and people joined us as it went along, especially if we needed more expertise. We met and interviewed and had dialogue with as many people as possible. And we wrote up 11 stories of change. So the data for the evaluation actually came from the people who were in the program, and we wanted their story. And that was so funny because a lot of them were very shy. They were good with dogs, but some of them were this big, some of them were old, and they were too shy to talk. So we needed different research techniques to get the wisdom, to get beneath the skin of the understanding. We developed insights from all that. So actually, those 5 points are the structure of the talk, okay? The key finding, and this is really probably number one, issues are social as much as animal related. You know, and many people in the room who've worked a lot with Funda Nenja will tell you it's actually about people. It's a bit like climate change. One of the biggest challenges the world faces at the moment. It's a people issue, you know, and you can develop all the technical solutions you like, but if the people don't understand them and want to apply them, it's really pointless. So it's not about just making movies about caring about dogs. It's about involving, engaging, and co-engaging people. We call that action learning. Learning that's situated in the reality of working with your dog. Not the kind of learning you get in a classroom where you understand things. I know thousands and thousands of people that pass their matric exam, and you know what? In that exam it says, should people litter? And everybody says, no, they shouldn't litter. But you learn it in your head. It doesn't connect with your hands. You don't even think you are littering when you clean your car out on the side of the road, because the learning is inappropriate. It's not action-centered. And one of the powerful strengths of Funda Nenja is it's action-centered. It would have been so much more convenient to find a big funder and bus all the people of Mpopomeni into a nice venue like Fernhill and lecture them about caring about dogs. And they would have loved it. And they'd have loved the tea and the food and the setting. And you know what? It would have done no good at all. That is not what Funda Nenja is about. So this is from Mr. Dambuza, and I'd like to honor him today because he died last year of COVID-related issues. And Mr. Dambuza lived his whole life with his wife, Mrs. Dambuza, in Edendale, very close to where Funda Nenja is. And the picture when he died was from their daughter Tembeka, who helped with this evaluation. And it's a picture of two elderly folk stooped over, walking through a shopping center, holding hands. It's just, this is Mr. Dambuza. But this is a true story. They hired a help for their home in Edendale. And this lady came and she was bustling around. And Mr. Dambuza said, this is not good enough. It's not working. And he really laid down the law. And that is what he said. In our family, there are only children. Some have 2 legs and some have 4. But they all must have the utmost care. And he'd seen this new help go shopping for the family, and also an isiZulu lady, but she had bought the cheapest dog food for the dogs. And you can buy cheap dog food. And you know what? It's not very good for dogs, especially some cheap dog food that is problematic. And I just thought that's a priceless turn in this thing. And Mr. Dambuza did not go to Funda Nenja. He knew about it and loved it, but he was too old to get into the classes. I think you've got to be under 72 to get into grade 1 at Funda Nenja. We can learn so much from dogs. This is the fun part of this talk. My wife said, don't be boring. So this is the fun part. You can learn from dogs that you shouldn't be judgmental. Do you know what? Your dogs are never judgmental. Imagine a world where people stop being judgmental. And do you know, and this is true, the more judgmental you get, the more love recedes. If you want love to rise, stop being judgmental. It doesn't mean you're not being critical. Doesn't mean you're not being thoughtful. But even in the Bible tells us how if you judge, you will be judged. And many great scholars of religion, Jesus included, have told us that don't judge others. And so many of us are so critical of everybody else that we don't, I'll mess up the metaphor, we don't take the log out of our own eye before we're pointing out all the problems with everybody else. Sometimes I think it's a South African problem. We're always blaming people. We blame the government, we blame this, we blame that. And yet, we have the Funda Nenjas to celebrate and be proud of, where people aren't going around judging everybody. They're just working quietly, calmly, and in a kind way with anyone who wants to learn more about dogs. So, don't be judgmental. Be loyal. Loyalty is just such a wonderful thing. Look after your family group. If one of them is struggling in whatever way, care for them. And you'll notice that once dogs have formed a pack, and usually the humans are part of the pack, even though they don't know it, that pack will be looked after to the utmost. People will die for the pack. And be brave. Have you noticed how brave dogs are? You could be attacked by someone with an AK-47, and your Jack Russell will fly at that person to the best of its ability. Dogs are brave. We should all be brave. We should be more brave than we are. I'm not sure what we're all frightened of. Have no expectations. We live lives with expectations. We expect to get a good job. We expect to have a nice house. We expect the world to run smoothly. We expect the government to do exactly what the government should do. And that's why we become miserable. So have a vision and a dream. And your vision and dream could be as great as Funda Nenja, really. But don't have expectations with it. That's when you get miserable. And once you get miserable, you get incompetent. So nobody should get miserable. So that part was the fun bit. My wife said that some people would laugh when we did the fun bit, but anyway. So there's our steering committee, and I'd really like to particularly thank Sarah Pryke, who couldn't be with us today. And most of the photos in the book are from Sarah, and she is one of those 1 in a million people who, through ill health and the most amazing health challenges she faces, she is still Funda Nenja stalwart. It struck me in doing the evaluation that it's working well because people do what they can do for Funda Nenja. You could be like Patrick, and you could be really good with the sound system. You help with the sound system. You could be like somebody else, like Sarah, who's a good photographer, but has a health challenge. She helps to the best of her ability. So everyone has a role to play. Sally, sitting at the back, painted some of the new containers when we had to move to a new school, because she's a great painter. She might not ever be a good trainer for people, but everyone can put their best foot forward and do what they're good at for Funda Nenja. And one reason for this meeting, from Adrian's point of view, was so many people ask her, say, how do you start Funda Nenja? I want to do one in Eswatini or out to Johannesburg or Belleville, Milnerton and Cape Town. How do you do it? Well, it's not a quick fix. Oh, you just get in a whole lot of local people and tell them how to look after dogs. It isn't like that. But you will get people, well-meaning people, coming to help you, and you need to find out what are they best at, and let them do what they're best at. If they're good at making videos, they can help you make. Some are good at making videos. Some are good at fundraising. Some are just seriously rich. And they don't really have time to go and help people with dogs, but they'd be so proud to donate. So give them the privilege. Don't tell them it's a sponsorship. It isn't a sponsorship. It's actually an investment. It's an investment in the future of dogs, the future of people. It's an investment in the future of South Africa. People who have money would love to know that they're investing in making this a great nation. And here we have a formula through Funda Nenja to do it well and wisely. Isn't that fantastic? So that was the committee meeting. Then we met loads and loads of people. And as one person said, I just can't believe this Funda Nenja. He said, do you know, every Friday, about 100 people gather in Mpopomeni. It's like a seriously effective protest. And he says it's worse than that. They all bring dogs. He said there should be chaos. There should be dog fights. There should be people yelling and shouting and screaming. And he said the first hour is always a bit chaotic, but it's calm and it's inviting. And he said, and then he showed me, he said, do you know that on average, about 35 dogs come to Funda Nenja every Friday and they're not allowed through the gate because they don't have an owner. So all the stray dogs of Mpopomeni who want to have an owner know that there's something really cool going on a Friday afternoon, and they line up at the fence. If they manage to get in, they get turned out, because you can't have a dog without an owner if you're running a dog school, you know. So I think that's another priceless side of the story. Oh, if a community project's going to be successful, there's a number one criteria to make it successful. People must be learning. Do you know, all humans love learning. And if they're learning, then they develop a sense of agency and power comes from it. And we reviewed hundreds of community programs, and all the ones without learning eventually failed. If people aren't learning, there isn't much hope. And people actually love learning, even if they say they don't. And even if they can't speak English, even if they don't have much schooling or had an apartheid education, they actually do love learning. So whatever you do in your projects, make sure there's as much of a learning component as possible. And that is so powerful in Funda Nenja. So the 7 steps that you can get on the training school, you can arrive in, I call it class 1. They've got more fancy names now. Class 1 is the beginner guy with his dog. And then there's class 2, and you can progress. And now most of the instructors have been through all the classes. And most of the instructors grew up in Mpopomeni. So there's been this transformation of management in Funda Nenja. But it took quite a while to come about, and you can't rush it. So initially it was mainly more elderly, usually white, well-meaning people who could afford to give up their time, who were the instructors. It wasn't long before instructors emerged from the ranks and started taking over. And you know what? It's not a matter of language. This is another myth that the research revealed. Don't ever do something, don't ever not do something because you think you can't speak Zulu. That's nonsense. Do you know that most knowledge is conveyed through the tone of the voice, not through the words we use? How often have you met a kindly person and they can't speak English, but you just get a warmth in your heart being in their company? That is what true communication's about. So if you have a warm heart and a love of people, you can share and learn with anyone, regardless of their language. Language is not a barrier to learning and to Funda Nenja. Seriously. So don't make excuses and say, well, I'd love to help Funda Nenja, but actually, I better not because I can't speak Zulu. I'd love to help Funda Nenja, but actually I can't because I'm a bit white, you know? It really doesn't matter. People love everybody in their hearts. And if you've got a good disposition and full of enthusiasm, it doesn't matter where you come from, what language you speak, people will love you and you'll be able to help in some way or other to the best of your ability. And these 2 ladies will figure out what you're good at. And they do it quite quickly, and then they put you to the best work that you can possibly have. So we revealed lots of myths in this research. This is another story. I said the data for the research was based on stories of change, and this is an excerpt from Tabani and Ngubani. I was born and grew up in Mpopomeni. When I was 14 years old, I heard about Funda Nenja. I heard that people from Funda Nenja really cared about people and their dogs and realized I could learn from them. So there's a young man becoming part of it. So we wrote a story about him, and that became one of the 11 This book has 11 stories of change, how people change their lives, and they're authentic stories of change, so they're not made up. But this guy was quite shy, and I struggled to get a story out of him. He started telling it in isiZulu, then we broke into English, and we used a report and respond methodology for the research, which means he reported to me, I wrote it up, and then the next day I asked him to respond, and I read it to him. I said, is this what you meant? No, I didn't mean it like that, Jim. I meant it like this. So each of these stories had about 5 or 6 iterations until the person or the family, in the case of the Kumalos, were happy with the content that went into the book and that their story was authentic. Once we had the 11 stories, we could start extrapolating the data from it. But I still couldn't get this guy to talk. We needed an innovative research design. So one day, I don't know where it came from, I think Robert Donahue, he said, okay, Tobani, what does your dog think of Funda Nenja? Talk as your dog. And now his dog's called Haley. Haley's not a person, Haley's a dog. So he said, this is what Haley would tell you. And suddenly, out it all came. My name is Haley. I am Tobani Ngobani's dog. I love going to Funda Nenja because there are a lot of dogs there and nice ladies who care about us. Where are all the men? I don't know. You can feel it. I mean, you can feel it. It just runs in your bones. They teach us and our owners. We learn to respond well to our owners, and our owners learn how to care about us. At Funda Nenja, they make sure that we are healthy and that we have had all our medical inoculations. The people who work at Funda Nenja are also enthusiastic to help all the pupils who attend classes to further their schooling. Not just about dogs, is it? This includes sponsoring some pupils where they are able. Sometimes Funda Nenja people even help people find jobs. That's on page 23. And you can read more stories from dogs if you get one of these books. I think you need to buy them from Lisa. She's selling them on a cost recovery basis. So whatever it costs to print them, she'll see you get them. Insights. Now, this is the research findings, and they're a bit surprising. But maybe when you think from your heart, you're going to think, no, these are common sense. So I've dwelt enough on that. It's as much about people and communities as it is about dogs. How stereotypes can be revealed and can be overcome. So many of my friends, who also happen to be old and white like me, said, yeah, I'd love to help Funda Nenja, but, they don't need more white people there. It's just nonsense. Let's rise above the stereotypes. Others tell you, but Zulu people, they don't know how to care about dogs. That's the problem. It's their culture. That is bullshit. And we must never let anyone get away with a stereotype. Be polite with them, try and question them about it, but for goodness sake, overcome stereotypes. We've had enough racism in South Africa to know how unhealthy it is to have stereotypical ideas about people and their cultures. What we think rich white people are like, or what we think rich black people are like. Those are stereotypes, and they're not true. I really want to emphasize this insight. People are more similar than cultures. It is so profound, really. In the first meeting of Parliament in Cape Town, there was an awful interaction. A gentleman who is an elected MP in Mandela's Parliament told everybody that women should not be allowed to own land. Everyone was thunderstruck. How could this democratically elected guy say this? How chauvinist, how awful. So they said, how can you say that? And he said, proudly, with a smug smile, it's in my culture. How do you deal with that? Another lady stood up. Now, she was a white lady, and she'd been an activist in MK, actually physically fighting for the liberation of South Africa. And she stood up and she introduced herself, and she said, I'm a white person, and I understand that my culture used to have slaves, and I'm just so thankful that my culture has changed. And that's in the Hansard of our Parliament. So we mustn't stick with these stereotypes. They are really, really problematic. And people are more similar than culture. All people want their kids to be happy, their kids to have good schooling. They all want their dogs to be looked after. Actually, that's intrinsic in their heart. It doesn't matter what culture they come from. And if we can engage with them through projects like Funda Nenja, so much the better. Did you know, for example, that Nelson Mandela absolutely loved dogs? It doesn't often come through in the literature, but there he is with Gompo. Imagine trying to liberate a country and having to go to prison for 26 years where you couldn't even keep a dog and you love dogs. So the stereotype of many people was, oh, he's just a, terrorist. How I care for dogs through indigenous practices is deeply part of Zulu and isiZulu culture. We know that the Canis africanus dogs if you've been to the pyramids of Giza in Egypt, you'll see them painted on the rocks there, in the pyramids. And those dogs, which were initially called pharaoh dogs, before they were reclassified as Canis africanus, don't have the same genetic material as most dogs, which are wolves, or descended from wolves. So even a Great Dane and a Chihuahua comes from a wolf. But Canis africanus comes from a different genetic lineage. We don't fully understand it, but it moved down, that group of dogs moved down with the cattle herders all the way from Egypt into southern Africa and to Cape Town. So when you see Canis africanus in the townships, honor it. That its gene pool has come with its relationship with people. And in KwaZulu-Natal, they're isiZulu people. So there's also this deep intrinsic love and relationship with dogs. They might not be lap dogs, overfed and sitting on your lap, but they are part of that family community. And indigenous isiZulu culture has an enormous respect for dogs. That was another stereotype we were able to reveal. How unlearning unhelpful practices is so important. At Funda Nenja, you can unlearn stuff that's not good for you. So you can come there thinking that, I know, if I beat my dog, it'll behave well. At Funda Nenja, that gets unlearned. Often the best form of learning is actually unlearning stuff we carry in our heads that's no longer useful. And if we're in the company of wise people, we can unlearn the stuff that's not good. How people can develop leadership and continue to find meaningful career opportunities. Absolutely. And how intergenerational relationships can develop. One of the saddest things about modern society worldwide is there's a huge gap between children and adults. Children despise older people, they don't want to be in their company, and older people think all kids are unruly. There's no way you can intergenerationally meet, and computer games and mobile phones and computers sometimes make that worse. But through projects like Funda Nenja, everybody loves dogs. So you get this amazing intergenerational relationship developing. It's like it's like the glue that keeps humanity together. Three other key ideas. People love learning. I've dwelt enough on that. And you need pathways of learning so that there's structure. You can't just teach everyone in the same way. Agency through action learning strengthens as trust develops. It is, of course, all about trust and love. And I just want to mention shifts in animal treatment, the One Health concept that you'll hear more about. You're going to chat to us about it later. We have some very wise people with us who can tell us about how our pets are integral to the family. They're not something over there like another motor car. They're really part of that family structure. And the One Health movement is phenomenal. So I've tried to acknowledge some of the people that helped. Obviously, Kevin sitting there will speak later, but those are just some of the people that helped with the study. But the most important of all is all the Funda Nenja participants who were so phenomenal in helping us do the study, and the way they engaged and co-engaged and spoke from the mouth of their dog or from whatever was just priceless. What a wonderful research to be a privilege to be part of. Thank you, Funda Nenja, and good luck for the future.